Hey there. So my next guest is really cool. He's a giant Batman fan, just like I am. It was like, we connected like instantly. But he's a little older than some of the guests I've had on, and that's because he got into streaming later in life. He's been a lifelong gamer, but he's been working his tail off for years and years in as an exterminator. And it's really cool because like he decided that he wanted to get into the gaming space way late in life, well past when people would normally think he should have. And like what he's been able to do with it is really cool. He's the CEO of a stream team. So like you guys got to check this one out. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today I have a very special guest with us. I have Scott Henry. Hey there, Scott.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm beautiful. It's a sunny day in Las Vegas. How about yourself?
Oh, it's great here in Dallas. So enjoying it while I can.
All right. So Scott, you've got a lot going on. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll get started.
All right. My name is Scott Henry. Obviously, I go by the name of King Texas. I am a 44-year-old gamer, which is one of the rarest things I found. I represent a team called Four Kings as their CEO and one of the main streamers of the team. We are a gaming and entertainment team, which means that we focus on streaming, putting out videos. We do have a COD team, Call of Duty, and stuff like that. So that's enjoyable. It takes up some of my time. I'm a father. I have two grown sons. My youngest just graduated high school Friday night. So that's one of my proudest achievements. He'll be leaving for college here in a couple months. And that's allowing me to spend a little bit more time doing some of my extracurricular activities. I am an exterminator by nature. So I have been doing pest controls since I graduated high school. I've already told you how old I am, so I might as well tell you I've been doing that since 1993. So that is usually 6 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day on top of everything else I do. So
very cool. And you're a giant Batman fan.
Obviously, love Batman. I think one of the main reasons I love Batman so much, as we've discussed earlier, is, the duality between the good and the evil. Also, you can have Superman and the Flash. Everybody has superpowers, but he came from nothing. A billionaire that came from nothing. Let me rephrase that. He's just a normal guy, that came and does superhuman things with just his debility of his brain and his body. So it's one of those motivating things where, be it a comic book movie or not, it's still a good message.
Absolutely. And having been an attorney myself, there's just something, I love Batman. Batman's my favorite character of all time. There's just something about like his concept of justice, because there is so much injustice in the legal system.
Yes. Especially now with everything going on, it's a very trying time. 50% of me is mad. Like, why are you tearing stuff up? Why are you destroying stuff? The other 50% of me is like, yeah, I see it. Because it's not something a lot of times I feel comfortable speaking about, because you're going to have the people that say, well, you don't have a right. You've never been. Well, you don't know what I've been through. I'm not going to lie. When I was 17, 18, 19, we all had our wild years. I've been on the ground with the cops on my back. It doesn't feel good, but I was not treated the same way they were. And it's one thing to do what's being done now. I just, if anything, after all this, I just hope it affects some type of change, and whether you're green, purple, black, yellow, we're all people. We all have the same common goals. We all want to live the American dream, the Canadian dream. We just want to live. We just have a dream. We all want to see that dream come to fruition. And it's not fair as a society to judge people, by the color of their skin or by their profession. Going back to the exterminating, a lot of people think that I'm just an exterminator. I just go out and I kill everything. And that could be furthest from the truth. My main title at work is I'm a wildlife management specialist, which means that anytime there's a squirrel or a raccoon or possum, I'm usually the one responsible for getting it out of the person's attic or wherever it may be. And a lot of people's conceptions of that is we kill them, and it's not. You know, we release them. I actually, to the left of me, have a squirrel that I've raised since she was a baby, and she's about 4.5 years old. So we do rehab with injured and wildlife. And this afternoon, probably after we're done, I will be releasing a baby possum that we've had for 2 months that is now finally able to be released back into the wild. So that's
how precious.
So that's fun. I mean, it's a juggling act, because obviously we've only been talking for a few minutes, and you can see everything I do, and we haven't even gotten to the gaming part yet. So
sure. All right. Now I'm going to ask you my first question. I ask everybody this question. If you've seen any of my episodes, you know it. Like I always say, this is my first question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, Scott?
A 10.2.
I mean,
10.2, and it goes to what I was saying. You know, it's, you see most people my age, they're out golfing, doing other stuff. You know, most of them you don't see sitting in front of a video game for 2 to 3 hours, and then another 2 hours in front of a PC trying to edit clips together to make a video. And then obviously with the Batman and everything, it's nice. That's one of the reasons I'll do like going to the conventions. It's because you're around a bunch of like-minded people. You feel more comfortable in your own skin, because you don't have to worry about anybody teasing you or harassing you. It's like, why is this 44-year-old man wearing Batman Converse? So yes.
Wonderful. All right, so this is the gamerpreneur.
Yes,
I need
sir.
your gaming cred. When did you first start playing video games?
I started playing video games when I was probably 6 years old, 7 years old, when the Atari came out. I remember going to the bowling alley with my mom as a kid, and she'd hand me a handful of quarters, and I would go to the arcade. And of course, the arcade at that time consisted of like 6 pool tables and a Pac-Man, Space Invaders, the typical. And I will never forget, I felt like a millionaire the day my dad came home with an Atari 2600. And to be able to sit there and play the same games in my living room that we were playing with at the bowling alleys, at the arcades. And over the years to progress from the Atari and then to the Nintendo, then to the Super Nintendo. And then I kind of, I don't know, my high school years were pretty filled with sports, from football and basketball. And about a year after I graduated high school, I moved in with some guys, and one of them had a Nintendo. And we started playing again. And I hadn't played a video game in 3 years. And at that point, I decided I'd never quit again. And I've upgraded every year. I've stayed with the PlayStation. Usually one of the first ones in line. It is to me, this is my therapy. No matter if you're a 12 to 14 hour day, no matter how bad everything goes, you come home to be able to sit down and just go to a fantasy world, whether you can blow up a building without actually having to hurt somebody, or drive around at 80 miles an hour, do Grand Theft Auto without having to worry about getting a ticket, where in the real world you can't do that. So you don't have anything out there to blow stress off. And it's nice. It's a nice reliever. It's to be able to come home and do that. And I say come home and do that. Usually my routine is work, come home, spend time with the family, the wife, the kids. And then once everybody starts to settle down for the evening is when I'll settle down and start my stream or start my video games. There's a lot of nights maybe I don't stream, I just want to play.
Sure.
And it's a hard balance, but it's a balance. You have to prioritize, with everything going on in your life. And sometimes, yes, I want to do challenges in Fortnite, but sometimes I have to change the oil in my car.
Right. All right. So I'm not trying to say you're older, but as an older gamer, how do you feel about the rise and fall of arcades? Because they just don't really exist anymore.
No, I mean, teenager, Tilt in the mall was it. Growing up, we had one down the street from our house, but we weren't allowed to go to that one. It was obviously the stereotypical late 70s, early 80s arcade. All the hoodlum teenagers were in there smoking, and 10 and 11 years old, you just weren't allowed to go in. So that was nice again when I was talking about how to be able to play at home. But as I got older, mid-teens, being able to go to the mall, to go to Tilt and see a nicer environment, to be able to play, but nothing ever beat the experience of sitting in your own living room. And it was hard to beat that. I think Dave & Buster's has done a real good job in incorporating the adult with the child, bringing the adult in you and the child in you out at the same time. They're like, hey, here's a giant Super Mario Brothers, and if you get high score, you get a free beer. And I'm like, motivation. So it's very nice in that point. I like to see more of them. I've noticed a lot of, and I'm not even saying mainly so much as an arcade, but what I would like to see is maybe sites set up dedicated to gaming for people who don't have the ability to game at home. Because having a PlayStation at this point at home without internet connection, and there's a lot of people that just don't have internet connection, and there's nothing that can be done about it. It is what it is. And it might not just be financial, it might be location. Where I live at south of Dallas, for the first couple of years I lived here, the internet was so hit or miss, and none of this would have ever been possible. But through years of improvement, it's helped. But I would like to get something to where kids in the neighborhood, almost like a YMCA for gaming, where you can go into it and it's got a wall of PlayStation games, a wall of Xbox, some retro, maybe some Super Nintendo, Sega, something where you can go and play and have a safe environment. Just kind of, once again, back to the common motto of like-minded people, because that's when you're going to be I guess you're the most relaxed, you're most yourself, and I think a lot of times like when you go to some of those arcades, it's just not there. You feel rushed, like especially Dave & Buster's on a busy Friday night. You're not going to be able to sit at that game you want to play for 2 hours because you're going to have a line behind you. But if you have something where you, like, not even, like if you have a membership, like you pay $10 a month and you can go here whenever, I would like to see that at some point. Okay. Maybe I just came up with an idea for a business right on that thing.
Yeah, there's a good chance. All right. So Scott, how long have you been streaming?
Started 3 years ago.
Okay. What got you into it?
My son. My oldest, pardon me, my oldest, I was into a game called H1Z1. And I was asking him questions about it. And he says, well, why don't you watch this guy? And he showed me a guy named Optic Big Timer who was really big into it. And I was watching, I was like, well, this is weird. He goes, yeah, he's streaming. I was like, well, what is that? It's like, I didn't really know what Twitch was. I didn't really know, to me, streaming was what I'd seen on YouTube and stuff, where it's people just like we're doing now, but they're doing it from their living rooms and talking. I didn't know you could actually like stream video games. And then he came in and he pulled up my PlayStation and he says, watch this. And he pulled up the settings and it said broadcast. And from the very first time I ever hit broadcast, it's been addicting ever since. It goes back to the release and the relaxation. Sometimes it's a little more stressful than I think. I bring that on myself. I put too much pressure on myself. It's everybody wants to compete, and it's hard to go in knowing sometimes you have 0 viewers. It's hard to compete against others. It's hard to compete against yourself sometimes. And then there's some days you'll have 3 to 4 viewers, and then there's some days you have 10 to 15. But my main thing is, as long as I'm enjoying the game, I'm going to stream it. And whether you watch it live or you come across it later, I hope that I can help somebody. That's my main thing. Is I try to have fun. Obviously, sometimes you rage. Video games do that. But my main goal is I want somebody who's having a bad day to click on my stream and laugh. whether I said something funny, whether I died horrifically, if it makes you laugh and feel better for that 10, 15 minutes you're watching me, that's great. A lot of my streams I do just for fun. Obviously, I'm not out here being Mr. Professional. I'm not trying to change the world on the 2 hours I have a night. I'm just trying to change the world of the people, not the world, but change the views of the people that come into the stream that may have a question, that may not understand how something works. In the 3 years I've started this, I've probably helped a lot of people get started on their own, because a lot of people like me didn't realize how easy it is. A lot of them see the big streamers like Ninja and all of them on Twitch and Mixer that have thousands and millions of viewers and followers, and they see all the money they're making and they think that I can do that. And you should think that. That should be your first mindset, is I can do that. But that, just because that's your mindset doesn't make it a reality. There's a lot of grinding, and that's the word I never thought I'd use as much, is grinding. Because on top of everything else that I do throughout the day, I have to think, what am I streaming tonight? Am I going to do this? Is it going to be relevant to what's going on? I really like, I was supposed to be streaming Grand Theft Auto this week, and I'm not doing it because a lot of it gets really violent, and there's a lot of stuff in it that's I'm trying to take away from everything on this outside world that's going on right now. And if you're trying to escape from that, I certainly don't want somebody to have to come to the stream and watch it in my stream. So it's basically, it goes, I'm trying to think of the most perfect way to say it. It's in my head. I just can't get it to come through that filter.
Sure.
It's my Zen. And I want it to be somebody else's Zen too, because I think for everybody out there, just because you're not playing a certain game doesn't mean you don't have to watch and enjoy that particular streamer. So
That's
it's
fantastic. Okay. Now, Scott, you're part of a stream team. How did that start out?
About 2.5 years ago, thanks to Twitter, I received a DM from a guy named Fancy Org. And Fancy does a lot of Rust videos, and he had gotten involved with a team called Omega. And basically what this was they were a team. They had 7 to 10 of us, and we would go on the team channel once a night. And it was a business, and it still is a business. And basically what it does is you go in, you assign a night, like I usually had Monday nights, and any money that was generated during a stream went to the team, bits and donations and subs and whatnot. So that helps fund apparel, which apparel helps fund professional teams. Like we were able to, to pay a couple guys to go to tournaments and represent us, so which helps your brand. Unfortunately, that team itself only lasted about 6 months until we were absorbed by 4R Kings. But once I've joined 4R Kings, I've been with them over 2 years, and I progressed from a streamer to stream lead. And then I've been the CEO now for a little over 1.5 years. So it's my responsibility on top of it. And it's so funny because it's like on top of everything else we got going on, I also have to scout, watch other streamers, other teams contact me regarding joining, make sure they're up to, I don't like to have I don't want to be judgmental and be like, well, you only have 33 followers. You're not joining our team. That's not my mindset. My mindset is every person that joins that team has potential. The only thing that would get you kicked off our team would be toxic behavior, racism, criminal behavior. Anything that would disrespect or make our brand look bad. We have had several successful apparel drops. We competed last year in the Call of Duty World League in Fort Worth, which I got to attend and participate in. That was probably one of the highlights of my career, and so far was supposed to do it this year, but obviously with the coronavirus, so it's been put off right now till October, so more to come.
Okay. You've got a deep professional background, so let's talk about your extermination. What got you into that?
I was bit by a brown recluse spider.
Oh, that doesn't sound so fun.
Um, it was, and it's funny is now just talking about it, it actually goes back to video games too. Um, at the time I was working as a landscaper. I was living in my first apartment with three of my friends. They were all at work. It was raining, so I was home, and it's noon. I decided I'm going to play some video games, so I bust out the Super Nintendo with some original Mortal Kombat, and I pardon me, I was in the middle of the game and I felt something on my arm, and I looked down and there's a spider crawling up my arm. Well, I smack it. Didn't even think anything else about it. And about an hour later, it was a painful red welt right there where I'd hit it. So I had about 6 more weeks left on my military dependencies. So I decided to go up to the military hospital up the street from our house. And I scooped the spider up in a little cellophane baggie and took him with me. And the doctor said it was brown recluse. He gave me a shot in the area. And to this day, I don't have pigment in that area. That's about the only side effect I got from that. However, the gentleman that came to spray our apartment was a guy I had played football with in high school for a couple of years. So he was giving me a hard time about, well, what were you doing home to be bit by in the first place? You should have been working. And I was like, well, I do landscaping. It was raining. He's like, oh, you got to come work with us. And it was during a slow period in the landscaping. So just on a whim, I went in and checked with them, and they hired me on the spot. I worked there for 7 years, and this was in Virginia. And I worked there until I moved to Texas. And I moved here in 2000. And I've been with the same company, Mid-Cities Pest Control, here since. So going on almost 20 years.
Very cool.
So,
Now, being with any job for 20 years, nowadays is kind of an accomplishment. What keeps you there?
it's different every day. It's never the same. Anywhere between 8 to 15 stops a day, and every stop is going to be different. So you're not stuck in the same rut. You're not doing the same thing. You're not just stamping paper, or button pushing. I couldn't see myself in an assembly line or any of that. I enjoy the fact that I could be at a stop and I know that in 45 minutes, I'm going to be somewhere else. And then in 45 minutes from there, I'm going to be somewhere else. So about 2 years ago, I was promoted to service manager, which meant that I was going to have to leave the field, which sounded great. And I worked in the office for about 2 weeks, and I was like, no, put me back in my truck. I need to be. And I did. I demoted myself just to get back out of my truck, and I've never been happier since.
Very cool.
And it's nice. It's not that it's more of the helping. I enjoy being the reason that when I leave, people no longer have the problem. It's challenging. You can't, like I said, every job is different. I could have 15 ant jobs, and every ant job is going to be different than the ant job before it. It's not all cookie cutter. You don't just walk in. You can't just spray and go. Some of it you have to do a thorough investigation, which I know this goes way back, but my junior and senior year of high school, I trained to be a police officer in a vocational school as part of my high school training. So I feel like that helped me out a lot with as far as my investigation techniques and stuff, as far as, determining evidence as far as what insect or rodent or other pest may be causing their issue. So because it is different every day, it doesn't seem like it gets old.
Okay.
It's nice to have loyal clients. We have over probably 3,000 regular clients that we deal with on a regular basis through our company, and 450 of them are mine, to where no other tech will go there because they won't allow any other tech other than me.
That's a huge business.
It's a huge compliment.
I gotta ask, like, what's the most extreme or most memorable experience you've had, or what job was the one that stands out?
The 4-foot alligator in a pond in Hutchins, Texas. If you know where Hutchins, Texas is, it's nowhere near where an alligator should be. So the only thing I could think of is somebody had this alligator at some point, it couldn't keep it anymore. And this was the closest place they could get rid of it. We're not too far from Louisiana. So it's not unusual for somebody to go down there, come back with a baby thinking it's going to be cool. And then a foot or two later and 60 more pounds later, it's not as fun as it used to be. So we ended up having to get him. We had several ways we were going to try, but I ended up just grabbing him. And it was,
you just wrestled it out.
It was grabbed by the tail. He whipped around on me, and it was, in my head, it was probably 5 minutes of slow motion, but I think the whole incident probably took about 2.4 seconds. And it was pretty much grabbed his tail from keeping him going in the water. When he whipped around, I got behind him and just pushed my head down on his head, on my hands down on his head so he couldn't lift up. And then the owner of the property that was with me proceeded to wrap his mouth with duct tape. And once we had that, it was pretty easy. We just each grabbed a side and put him in the back of the truck, and we drove 2 hours back to Louisiana from there and dropped him off in a little parish off of one of the main highways there. So, and it was nice. It was rewarding to cut the tape and have him go towards the water. And when he turns around and just gives you that one last look, like, okay, like he wasn't expecting that. He didn't know what was going on. And to this day, I just like to think he's still out there swimming around, enjoying a second lease of life. Legally, we could have done it the easy way because he was over 3.5 feet tall and was aggressive. We could have shot him. And that was not ever an option for me. And the second one would be in North Texas, closer to Wichita Falls. We handle a lot of the Texas Department of Transportation's, and we received a call about a snake in the garage. And when I got there, obviously 2 hours later, the snake was nowhere to be found. And what it had done, it had gotten up in behind a vending machine. And when I finally got it pulled out, it was a 4.5 foot Western Diamondback rattlesnake.
Oh, geez.
And what was weird was the whole time we were doing it, it never rattled. So we were under the assumption it was a rat snake. And there was a point where my arm was back behind there pulling the actual vending machine. And he could have got me at any time, and he didn't. And it went back to, I grabbed him with my sticks, I put him in the bag, and the lady was like, "Well, are you going to take him out back and kill him?" And I was like, "No." She's, "Why?" And I was like, he didn't ask to be a snake. He didn't choose to be, and he didn't bite anybody. He was never aggressive. He had every opportunity to bite me, and he didn't. And once again, took him about 45 minutes away, let him go in an area that way he wouldn't be a danger to anybody else, and nobody would be a danger to him.
Okay. So I want to ask, what makes you special? Because you're able to like hold this amazing job, and you're a streamer as well. You're a CEO of a stream team. You've got all this stuff going on. How are you able to do this? How are you balancing it all?
I don't know. I think one thing that helps is starting later. Most of the, so I keep wanting to call them kids. There are some adults. Most of the guys on my team are ranging age from 17 to 24 would probably be the average medium. So I'm 20 years probably older than the oldest kid below me. And they've got so much going on between their social lives and school and everything else. I'm able to take my experience that I learned. You really learn how to prioritize as a parent. Especially with two boys, they're doing two different things, so you're constantly being pulled two different directions. If there's anything that teaches you how to multitask, it's being a parent. So I think being a parent and taking the time to raise my kids and enjoy my family has allowed me to now be able to appreciate and focus on the streaming, the work, the family. The number one thing that any of it is prioritize. When I was sitting here looking through what we were going to talk about earlier, when I got to prioritize was my main thing. Before you do anything, you should sit down with a piece of paper and write down what's the most important to you. And then kind of assign each one of those an amount of time. Well, work obviously isn't my most important, but it's the most necessary. Well, that's 12 to 14 hours. And I leave here about 4:45 in the morning. I get to work anywhere between 5:30, 5:45. I'm usually there till a little after 6, and I'm home at 7. So that gives me 2 to 3 hours with the family, which then in turn only gives me 2 hours or so to deal with the gaming. And because I try to be in bed by midnight most nights, which gives me 4 to 4.5 hours of sleep a night, which I usually try to catch up on the weekend. But my main thing is, you hear a lot of people say you sleep when you're dead, and it's true. Is you're none of this can be given back. None of this can be done over. You only get one shot at this. And I don't want to miss my shot because I chose to do something else that wasn't on my priority list. As much as I enjoy fishing and going to hang out with my friends, I could have gone and done that, but this was on my priorities for today. So that's why. I mean, my main thing is set that list, stick to that list. And as long as you stick to that list and it's successful, then you'll be successful.
Now that's fantastic advice. And bouncing off that, if I can, I'd like to ask, if you could go back in time, maybe to right after you graduated high school, what would you do different, if anything?
To be honest, not a whole lot. I haven't really experienced any hardships or any dramatic failures in this, because every failure is a lesson, especially with streaming. If you streamed Strawberry Shortcake and nobody came, well, that's a failure. No, you don't do that again. You learn from it. Being this late in the game, it's like I can't go back and say I did this, because if I did something different, it may not have allowed me to have my wife. It may not allow me to have the kids I have. So obviously, if I could go back and change certain things, it would probably be just friends, toxic friends that I thought were for me, when the whole time they were just there for themselves. And, and that's before gaming. That even really, I've met some of the most genuine friends I've had. I've never met in real life, but, I've spent years talking to through video games. I wish I wouldn't have taken a few years off and had dedicated more time to gaming around that time and taking it more seriously, going to more tournaments and maybe starting a little bit earlier, because I feel now I'm having to run twice as fast just to keep and catch up with what's going on. That's one of the main things that I've focused on recently, is not changing games so much. And earlier, I don't know, I was so scatterbrained. It was this, that, but it goes back to what I said with the priorities. The priorities really came into right after high school, when I started working and having to balance time between work and a girlfriend and my family, and at the time up there, my friends. And that's when you really find out, who your true friends are and who your family is. And, so as far as changing anything, it probably would have been some of the people I was hanging around, but really nothing else other than that.
Okay. Kind of following up on that question, you mentioned failure as being a great teacher. Yeah. What would you consider to be your biggest failure, and what lesson did you learn from it?
I personally, I don't think you ever fail if you learn a lesson from it. It truly wasn't a fail. If you continue to do the same thing, I know that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same results. However, sometimes that's not true. Maybe sometimes it's just a slight tweak. Sometimes it could be, so when I first started streaming, for the first 3 weeks, I think the only viewer in there was me because I had it pulled up, and I'm in there talking to myself. And my biggest fail was I want to say impatience, because I was at such a rush to get out and be a streamer that I just started streaming, that I didn't take the time to go and look and see what all these other guys were doing, and see what procedures they were doing. And then I started taking that and like, okay, well, I'm not getting any viewers. I'm not doing anything different. And then I look back and I said, oh, I'm not doing anything. They're the ones that are doing stuff different. They're the ones that are clever titles, clickbait, as I like to say, tags. I didn't know what hashtags and everything was when I first started doing all of this. You know, that's a pound sign. I don't know what you mean. So, like it's as far as that, if you strive forward and actually gain anything from whatever experience, to me, it's not a failure. So when I was looking over it, that was probably the hardest question I was going to have, was failure. I think I failed more in real life as far as, you know, letting people down. In the past, when I was younger, I was real selfish. So I think a lot of times I failed as a person. But once again, I was able to sit back and look at my actions. And now, personally, I think I go out of my way more than a lot of other people to help everybody, as opposed to using everybody to help myself. So in the end, you know, there is no failure if you learn from it. That's my mantra.
All right. So kind of on the opposite side of that, what is something you're working to improve on in yourself right now?
My temper. I do have the temper, and what's funny is that in real life, I'm a teddy bear, straight up. You know, I could be mad at you and I'll still hug you, but something about video games, man, just brings it out. I mean, I know.
You sent me a video clips of yours, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to bleep a lot on this one.
Yeah, it's hard. A lot of it's frustrating, and I'm really, really working on it. But a lot of it's entertaining. A lot of people tune into it. But there's a difference between fun rage and rage, and, you know, smashing a $70 controller because a guy shot you. You know, you weren't doing that when you shot the other guy. So I need to improve on that. And it also, as a if as an image, you know, it's one thing I said is I want somebody to come to my stream and actually have a good day. Well, if they're having a bad day and then I'm having a bad day, well, we're just all going to have a bad day. And that's no fun for everybody. At the end of the day, I just want everybody to smile and laugh and just, I've gotten a lot better at it. It's some games it's required. I'm sorry. You know, it's when you're Call of Duty is, I think they put stuff in there just to make people yell. They'll never admit it.
All right. Well, Scott, this has been wonderful. How do people find you? Where are you on social media?
On Twitter, I'm at King Texas. It's KingTexxas, and same on Instagram. Feel free to look me up, follow me. I'm King Texas with 2 X's on Twitch because 3 X's apparently was against the family guidelines. And I'm King Texas Clubhouse on YouTube. And it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on and giving me a chance to speak. And I've been watching you over the past, couple months and interacting with you on Facebook. I really enjoy it. Thank you for doing what you do and bringing this to the community.
Certainly. And you're one of my top fans now.
Oh, you always will be, man.
Turn it on.
So you always count on me for support, and I'll always be there. And if you ever need me to come on again, I'm more than a message away.
Certainly. Well, I got one last thing. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover? Like, this is the last chance.
No, I think everything has been pretty much covered. We covered a pretty broad spectrum. Just looking forward to some of the newer games that are coming out. The Assassin's Creed Valhalla looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
Call of Duty is getting a whole lot of new updates coming out over the next few weeks with different modes. I'm probably this afternoon going to try a new game Valorant, that I got on a drop on Twitch a couple weeks ago, and I just haven't had a chance to play. So just a lot of stuff coming out, a lot of distractions from the crazy stuff that's going on in the world. I just wish everybody would remember that no matter what color you are, what country you live in, you're still a human being, and everybody deserves to be treated the same. And it's sad that it's not the way. And hopefully after all this is done, everybody will sit back and look and realize, that we're all one, and just remember, one of my main slogans that I use in life is, you never grow old if you never grow up. And
I love it.
that will be to the day I grow old, but I will never grow up. So.
All right. Well, Scott Henry, thank you so much for coming on. It's King, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. And on that note, I will tell everybody, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.
There you go, man.